David has a flashlight because of course he does. That plays in even further to the fact that he has romanticized exploring this building before. He's just ready. At any moment, he's ready to explore some abandoned place with his crush. And then he also takes the valve as a souvenir, which is another really sweet, subtle moment that gives so much depth to the character. It just makes sense for him to do that. All these atmospheric sounds in this song that are really calming. So going back to what I said before, Matteo goes pretty much nonverbal as soon as they enter the building. He says 2 things between now and the end of the clip. I'm serious. He says 2 things, and they're both 1 word each. Right there you can see him trying to non-verbally get David's attention by being a little shit and kicking him. Kind of letting David know, like, hey, I'm still here. I'm in my head, but I'm still here. And I think this harkens back to something that I talked about in episode 2, where Matteo has a tendency to get into his head. Could be anxiety, could be just his temperament, whatever it is. In intense situations, he can get nervous and kind of sink into himself a little bit, and he 100% does this here. He does this actually in all 3 of like the big moments between himself and David, and this is the first one, their first kiss. So even though he has gone nonverbal, he has gone silent, even though he's definitely letting David take the reins, he wants to make sure that David doesn't think that he's not into it, that he's being passive. He's showing his active role in the relationship through nonverbal cues rather than verbal ones. And David just knows what to do. He notices the silence and he goes with it. He steps up. He fills the silence, but he doesn't push Matteo. He knows exactly what to do, somehow. Whoa. So that's the first thing. That is the first thing that Matteo says. 1 of 2 things. This set piece is so great. The pool is empty. This is such a cool choice, and it makes so much sense for David and Matteo. In the original, obviously the pool is full and they jump into it and they kiss underwater and then they come up out of the water and it's really like dramatic and whatever. But it's beautiful, you know? I'm not, saying that it's bad or anything. It's just a lot more outwardly dramatic in pretty much all of the other remakes. I think Scum France has them kissing in the rain, which is even more dramatic. All of the remakes have water in some way, and it makes it dramatic, it makes it cinematic. And I think there is also theories that it symbolizes being baptized and rebirth, which I totally agree with. But here, the pool is empty, and it's abandoned, and there's this huge echo in this place. First of all, it makes sense that it's less outwardly dramatic because Matteo and David are both quieter. Even though David is stepping up here and acting more like the Evan character, he's definitely just not as outgoing as Evan. Neither one of them are. They're just more low-key. They're more nonverbal than the other Isaacs and Evans. 2, it also goes with the Only Lovers Left Alive theme because they explore abandoned places. I'm pretty sure it's a theater that the characters explore there. A 3rd reason why I think it's perfect is because they have to play pretend. They have to pretend that they're underwater. It's gonna make sense why that works in the next episode, but as a precursor to that, I just want to say that once again, David is terrified of getting too close to Matteo, right? We've seen him get a little bit close and then back off, and then get a little bit close again and then back off. And then that just keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. Even when he is active and he takes Matteo here and he is gonna kiss him first, he's still playing pretend. There's an element of pretend in this scene. And that makes sense because the thing that makes David really pull back in the next episode is things getting too real. David has this fantasy of being with Matteo and wanting to be with him and taking him to this really romantic abandoned place and exploring it with his crush. It's all very romanticized, it's all very fantastical, right? And especially in David's mind, it probably seems that way. So it fits with David still kind of trying to keep it at arm's length. It's going to make more sense in the next episode when I talk about the breaking point, but I just want to throw it out here now that there is an element of playing pretend in this scene. Even in the cathartic moment of them finally kissing, it's still a little bit of a fantasy, which makes David feel comfortable because it's not completely real yet. They're pretending to be underwater. I'm not saying it makes it less real or that it makes his feelings for Matteo less real, but I think it makes David feel more comfortable knowing that there is a little bit of make-believe in it. And then the fourth reason is the echoing, like the set piece in general. The echoing is so beautiful here. Like the amount of echo is crazy. It's so echoey. You can hear every little movement. You can hear every footstep, every breath. You can hear everything. And every sound is amplified. It gives a sense of emptiness, but also coziness because it's such an intense echo. And I think this is a possible metaphor for how Matteo feels when he's with David. I talked before about how he feels the most himself that he's ever been when he's with David. He gets to let out parts of himself and cultivate parts of himself that have been left dormant. I think this is so cool to think about Matteo as this abandoned pool. That sounds really weird. Hear me out. He's been feeling so alone and so empty and so disconnected from all of his other relationships and just his life. That emptiness is still lingering here. Like I said before, David doesn't fix everything about Matteo. This emptiness is probably because of a deeper mental illness that David cannot fix. So the emptiness is still there, but it's being filled at least a little bit. And that's what the echo is. All of these sounds are amplified and they're bouncing around the space and they're making it feel cozier. They're making it feel more full. Even if in reality it's still abandoned, it feels warmer. And I think that is a cool metaphor for Matteo and David. And then lastly, to talk about the echo, I think it could also be a juxtaposition to the sensory overload that we've seen Matteo suffer through in the past two clips. Every sound is amplified here, but not in a bad way. Before, all of these sounds were amplified and disorienting, and they were also echoing. But here, there isn't that sense of overwhelming tension, and there isn't that disorienting editing style or anything like that. It feels warmer. And even though he is nervous, he's definitely nervous, he doesn't look overwhelmed, though. It's a different kind of nervousness. He's just nervous because he's with his crush and he has butterflies and he doesn't really know how to express himself. But you can see that he smiles, he laughs, he's enjoying himself. These sounds being amplified in no way gives you the same feeling that the sounds being amplified in the test scene and in the Amira and Matteo scene do. And I think that's really fucking cool. And it's a natural echo as well. The sounds in those other two scenes were cranked up manually by like the editing team. Literally, like they had to edit them to seem like how they sound in Matteo's head. But here it's a natural echo. Even if they maybe did in post make it a little bit more intense, you can see that it makes sense that this place would have an echo. So it just feels more peaceful rather than artificial. More of David challenging Matteo. More of Matteo being silent. I love that little moment where David opens up and says, "I've always wanted to come here." And Matteo, he kind of scoffs. That sounds like it has a negative connotation, but I just don't really know what else to call it. I guess he just kind of exhales as if he wants to say something, but he can't. He just keeps looking around and looking literally anywhere but David because he's nervous and in his head. And because of this, David steps up. He acts in perfect synchrony to Matteo. He walks forward, walks to the more shallow end of the pool, and knows that Matteo will follow him. He's trying to keep this going and keep something happening, and he knows that Matteo's not going to do it, and he's perfectly fine with being the one to step up here. More balance. They are in tune with each other. I kept saying in the last episode how Sara and Matteo are not in tune whatsoever. They are asynchronous in every way. But here, it just flows. David instinctively somehow knows what to do here, and Matteo just goes along with it, and it works. And that's more nonverbal cues from Matteo, kind of letting David know, hey, I'm still here, like I'm still around, still smiling, still laughing, still enjoying myself, just kind of checking in again. He starts fiddling with the lane separator thing, which is another thing that Matteo does when he's nervous. And right here, he looks completely in his head. He looked like he just sunk into himself here. He kind of just like fell into his own world. And in response to this, David ducks under the separator, looks at him in like a really challenging way again, and goes back into the deep end, coaxing Matteo to do the same. David, once again, takes the reins. He knows what to do, and he does it really well. And I think there is also symbolism of them moving into the deep end. There's a really great Tumblr post about it that I'm going to link that explains it better than I could. It definitely makes sense why they go into the deep end to have the kiss. And I think that's a cool little detail. So this is David playing pretend. He's living out this fantasy, saying that, you know, we're actually underwater. More nonverbal cues from Matteo. And this metaphor of not being able to breathe, it's definitely there in the original because they literally can't breathe. They are underwater. And then when they finally kiss, they come up for air. I think it's a really smart and layered metaphor for being in the closet. It can feel like you're holding your breath. I know it's kind of controversial, but I love Simon. It means a lot to me, even if it's not a perfect gay film, even if it's not a perfect coming out film. Sometimes films mean a lot to us, and they come out at like the exact right time, that even if they're not really that great, you still have like this very deep connection to them. And Love, Simon is one of those for me. And they make the same metaphor of being able to finally exhale once you come out. So I think that being used in Druck as well just goes to show that it is a really good metaphor. The fact that in this, they're not actually underwater adds another layer of that metaphor of they can breathe. In reality, they should be able to breathe fine. In reality, there is plenty of air around them, but because of these secrets that they're holding and because of all of this tension and longing that there is in the space between them, it feels like they're still holding their breaths anyway. It makes this analogy that like all of these hets get to just breathe fine, but we're over here constantly feeling like we're underwater. And I think that works so well when you consider how Matteo has looked so still whenever he's kissed Sara. It looks like he's been holding his breath. And maybe he has at some points, I don't know. But I've mentioned it a couple of times. In like, I think 3 separate scenes, he goes completely still when he kisses Sara, like he cannot breathe. And I like how Matteo scoffs after David says that. And I think on the surface it means that, you know, this is another nonverbal cue. Matteo is just kind of nervous and he doesn't know what else to do. He just wants to make some kind of noise so David knows that he's still with him. You could reach like I always do. I gotta do it. You could reach and say that this is Matteo trying to express like, yeah, tell me about it. I cannot breathe ever. I have not been able to breathe for a while now. And I love that. I think that's such a fucking cool metaphor. And them actually not being underwater just adds another layer of depth to it. That beautiful. The audio there is so cool. Right when they start holding their breaths, it sounds like they go underwater. I don't really even know how to describe it. Just listen. So cool. And then the song starts playing, which I fucking love this song. I think it is used so well, and it is also another Ryx song, which I've talked about before. He's shown up once before in the panic attack scene, which was called The Water, if you remember. Connection? Yes. Absolutely. And this one is called Untold. And the entire song is just so peaceful. It's so calming. And not the beat, but the drums sound like butterflies in your stomach, almost. The rest of it is really calm and peaceful, and the vocals are peaceful. Ryx has such a beautiful voice. But that drum beat that is just like kind of constantly going, it reminds me of Getting Butterflies, which I think is really cute. But yeah, like the rest of the sounds are so ethereal. I think that's the best word I could think of. It's very delicate. So some of the lyrics of this song, they're kind of hard to hear because Ryx definitely like mumbles a lot when he sings, which is my only critique. So I'm not sure if these lyrics are right, but these are the ones that make the most sense, so I'm just gonna go with it. Sun in my eyes, everything spoken, sold on my height, all of my fighting done. I'm letting go, leave me untold. I think these lyrics perfectly capture this idea of their unspoken bond. They have been pretty nonverbal in this entire clip so far. Matteo has kind of sunk into himself, but he's still here. And David knows this. He doesn't get like all like, what the fuck? What is he doing? He's not saying anything. David just knows. He gets Matteo. He understands Matteo. This is unspoken bond. They don't have to say anything. And I think that's why they use a song called Untold. And it also references fighting and letting go, which is a perfect parallel to the very first song that played when they saw each other for the first time. In that song, called Heaven by the Blaze, it challenges Matteo to surrender to these true feelings that he's having. And then in Untold, it states that Matteo has finally let go. And now that he has let go and is letting himself feel these feelings, he feels like his fighting is done. And that's just, it's so beautiful. And connecting to the exhaling metaphor, Matteo literally exhales when David kisses him for the first time. If that didn't prove it, I don't know what does. He can finally breathe. He can finally exhale. He can let out that tension. He has felt so tense this entire episode. He's been dealing with like these crazy sensory overload experiences. He had a panic attack in the episode before, and now finally he can exhale. And that is the second thing that Matteo says. So he said wow before, and now he says rematch, which I think is so important. It's basically the only thing of substance that Matteo has said since they entered the building, and it's asking for a rematch so he can kiss David. So that is letting you know for sure that Matteo hasn't checked out. Just because he's become nonverbal and just because he's nervous does not mean that he's not going to be active. David has taken the reins, yes, and he's totally okay with that. He hasn't seemed put off by Matteo's actions at all. But this is showing you for sure, and it's showing David for sure, that Matteo wants this just as bad as David does. He comes out of his nervousness to make sure that David knows he wants a rematch. And that inhale echoes so loudly. I really like that. All of my fighting done plays when they're so close to each other. And then Let It Fall plays when they kiss each other. When Matteo grabs David and kisses him. So they're both balanced. Just like in the original, that's not different. You know, first Evan kisses Isak and then Isak kisses Evan. So the way that this kiss scene is filmed and edited and framed is vastly different from any of the scenes in which we've seen Sarah and Matteo kiss. I've mentioned so many times that they're always framed really, really, really close, and it's always so suffocating, and there's no room to breathe. Literally no room to breathe. There's no room to look at anything else. Matteo doesn't touch her face ever. He doesn't move. He just, sometimes he doesn't even close his damn eyes. He goes stiff. Here, completely different. Definitely closes his eyes. They use slow motion to portray how Matteo wants this moment to just last even longer. Matteo is caressing David's cheek. He's touching him. The camera is moving around them. It's not stiff. There's plenty of room in the frame to be able to breathe, to be able to see what's happening. Yeah, there's like multiple shots, all from different angles. It's a lot more romantic. It's just all so much more romantic. I think the coloring is also different. This is warmer than a lot of the scenes with Sarah and Matteo. I'm thinking specifically of the one with them between the lockers. It's a very blue scene. But this, you can see like the flush on their cheeks, and you can see that their hands are kind of red and their ears are kind of red, and it just feels warmer, and it looks warmer too. And there's another Tumblr post that goes even more in depth about these differences that I'll link in the description too. This is how two people kiss when they actually want to kiss each other. Imagine that. Couldn't be Sarah and Matteo. Just couldn't. And then humor. More humor. Love that for them. Alright, I think that's finally it. I've been talking for so long. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be back for episode 5.